How's the material going? Hi, sorry I interrupted you.
You're good, man.
Oh. How are things going?
We're steady, just trying to catch up, really. I mean, everything's pretty good so far. Just looking forward to the next test that we have coming up, and of course, this week's material.
Okay. But it's doable, or is it you got questions, or is it out of step, or things are okay?
No, things are actually pretty good. Just when you get touch into the basis, it's kind of, it's more understanding now. The things are getting a lot easier, but it is a lot of studying. So it's just as long as you can catch up and be up to date, then, I think it's everything else is just kind of straightforward.
Yeah, and just make sure you go with that test review, right?
Correct.
That way you know
That
what
helps a
I
lot.
want from you at the end.
No, yeah, of course, the test review helps a lot.
Good. Well, it is a lot of stuff, but I figured I rather give you as much of the story as I can to make it as complete as possible, and not just because when I first started teaching this class as an intro class, it was or basic class, it felt like it wasn't a complete story. It was like a little bit here, a little bit there from the textbook. And so I wanted to make a real story out of it. So that's why I kind of, put a bunch in there as data points go, but then make sure you only memorize and study what is on that term list, of course, for the terms, but also what's on the review sheets for those 4 pages. I cannot reiterate that enough. Also going through the test, grading the test, there's still a few of you that have not taken the test. Of course, you're probably not on a phone call if that pertains you, but if you get to hear the recording, just make sure be in touch with me. I want to figure out how to work with you, but I need to be communicating with you.
Can I ask a question really quick? That's test 2, right?
Yes, it's still test 2, correct.
Okay. And then when's the next test?
That's the last at the end of the semester.
Okay, thank
you. Test 3 is the last test?
Yeah.
Oh, crap, that's soon.
Well, yeah, that's December, right? Whenever we finish the semester.
Correct.
I think December 17th.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that long. That's why I want you to be, that's why
that's what I meant. Like it's
that's why I keep saying, you gotta stay on top of things now a little bit more. Make sure you don't fall too far behind.
I do want to say something though. The only thing I do want to say is I do appreciate the fact of you getting my message on time with the technology that was messing.
Oh God, yeah, I know. I'm so sorry about that kind of stuff. That's just, we just have to do the best we can as it comes to those things. Absolutely. Yeah. Always be in touch with me if something don't work or if you have questions. Do not hesitate. Even if I'm a little slow because I'm building the class. I'm creating a new class out of it, and so it's a lot of work on my end right now. So I'm a little sloppy with the grading timing, but I'll be catching up sooner and sooner. Then my computer was stolen, so I work on one of these machines. I have to twiddle my thumbs until the page refreshes. So it's like So I'll be back in grading mode as soon as everything is back on track. But yeah, from you guys is make sure you stay on top of those videos now. Don't fall too far behind at this point. And if you haven't taken that test too, be in touch with me. I'm not gonna just drop you. But if you don't talk to me, I don't know what to do with it. So make sure you communicate. All right. So what I want to do this week. Any other comments? Sorry, I shouldn't just jump ahead.
I have a comment. When is this semester? When is the last day of this semester?
December 17th, I think, right? Anybody can correct me?
Yeah, December 17th.
That's what I have, that Friday.
Yeah.
So we're kind of winding down, but that's why, as you go through this material now, be sure, don't kick back, but try to absorb the material and go through the booklet and try to understand it, and then do the coloring and the labeling in order for getting deeper into the terms that we are needing for the test And part of the test will be like the second test where you have pictures with labels, and I ask you what's this called, and you tell me, and it's all from the list. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. A bunch of you in that second test did not follow the term lists necessarily, and so I want to make sure you all aware, and I reiterated over and over, that the terms, anatomy terms that I'm asking you come all from the term list. There's nothing else on the test. So that way, again, we don't make it endlessly complicated, because this stuff, you can study this stuff for a lifetime and you still feel like you don't know what that's how it works for me. When I talk about, when I study the muscles of the feet, because I have some patients with foot problems, I know a lot of it and I know more and more about it, but I always have to go recheck it up and look it up again, because it's very much detail. So don't feel, so we all feel kind of like, oh, this is such endless material. So that's why I identify exactly what I want to know from you for these last few weeks. And so be very, very clear about that for the test. All right. And then just take some deep breath, because it's actually.
I have just another question. So nothing from the beginning of the semester will be on the final test, just all the stuff we're learning right now?
Only what you're learning. Nothing from before. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Be very clear about that. Do not overstudy. Do not think you need to put more terms onto the list and color and label more terms, because that's not necessary. There's plenty already. Don't overwhelm yourself, and if that's the case, don't worry about that. You're learning a lot already, I think. And usually people who go on to the higher anatomy physio classes after we've done this class, you have a really good grasp of the fundamentals. So this week coming up so we finish. So this was the test, and we did the heart, we did the blood and the blood vessels a little bit. Not too many terms on the blood vessels, more integration thinking. And then immune system and endocrine integumentary we finished this week, and now we'll start going into the nervous system. And so again, in the module, if you want to review the questions from the integumentary and the endocrine system, you can go into this tab. Into this tab here on the FYI, and that gives you those. You don't have to do that, but just in case you want to. Some people learn that way. But then we start back with video material that you have in the booklet, and then integrate questions for the nervous system fundamentals. So that's like, how do actually a nerve fire down from the brain to the muscle to then make the muscle, move and contract. So that's those kind of questions. Or how does a neuron look? What are the structures of a neuron? So that's the introduction part. And then after that, we go right into the brain, and the brain is a 2-weeker. So the brain is like, I want you to start working on the brain and start with the first set of questions, and then finish up with the second set of questions the following week, sort of as a guideline. And then label and coloring, just do that over 2 weeks as well. And so that's what is in that section. And then these two are not pertinent for the class, that's for the in-class. But then I have the neuroplasticity tool, the gratitude journal, and that's from your health kit, where in the health kit, there is one towards the end that says gratitude journaling. And what I basically want you to do, I got this exercise from the UC Berkeley, has a department for happiness kind of studies. And they put stuff on the website. So I kind of copied and pasted stuff from them because I really like the way that they approach it and the way that they kind of put some research behind why that they're saying what they're saying. And so I urge you, to go to that website, because it's kind of fun to read through, why small talk at the grocery store is actually a good thing for our emotional health and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. But what I picked out of there is a gratitude journal. And I want us for a week or 5 days, I think, maybe it's a week. You look 5 or 7 days. I want you to write down at the end of the day a few 4 to 5 things that made you happy that day, that like made you look up and go like, oh, that's a nice sunset. Oh, wow, that's a pretty flower. Some things that we kind of normally go like, well, that's kind of stupid. Why would we do that? Or some of us go like that. But what research has shown is if we reinforce the neurological pathways, that now we're talking about nerves in the brain, and nerves in the brain work very much like, and one nerve stimulates the next nerve, stimulates the next nerve, stimulates the next nerve, and then that becomes a thought, a feeling, and whatever you want to have it. And the more we use the pathway of one thought, for example, like a happy thought, a gratitude feeling, the stronger that connection gets, and the nerve that comes after the preceding nerve will feed back to the preceding nerve and stimulate that pathway. And that's a real neuroplastic thing. That's actually neuroplasticity in a nutshell right there, is that reverberating circuit, that like neurons that fire together will wire together, that wiring process, that physical strengthening of the connection. And so, you know, it's kind of like a dynamic cable that gets stronger the more we use it. That's kind of how I visualize that. And gratitude is one of those things that we can sort of build to make us more content and make us happier and less anxious and fearful. And, you know, school in its own self, you're always tested and all this stuff. It's a fearful, you know, anxiety producing situation, sort of. Even if we tackle it well, it still does. And so I want you to do that for 1 week. I want you to write, or I want us to, you know, take some notes at the end of the day, just a couple scribbles, but write it down. That way it's really gets stronger as a sense of what did you, you know, find happy and make you smile when you go through the day. There's also on the back of that booklet number 5, I think it is, there's also a TED Talk that I think is fantastic that goes with it. And it says, it's the one in the middle on the third right last column. It says, want to be happy, be grateful. And so that's a 10-minute or so. It's not a long one, but listen to that maybe too. And that sort of reinforces what we're doing with this exercise here. So that's the health gratitude journal thing. I give you 2 weeks to do it. You just, you know, do 1 week of them and then fill out the back, make a picture and upload it onto that at the end of these 2 weeks, or at the end of, you know, November 14 is the due date. And then that's good for that. And then after that, what we do is we're going to go to the spinal cord, and then we're going to go talk about the sensory system, still nerves. And then from there, we're going to dive into the respiratory, which is the lungs, the digestive. I have a section on nutrition, some fundamental nutrition concepts that hopefully is helpful for some of you. And then we have urinary system, and we finish up with the reproductive system. And we also have a section on embryology there. The last section, if you look at your review, the last section, there's not really much on the test anymore. So it kind of slowly goes, you know, backs off a little bit with the information there that you have a little bit of time to integrate it and to, you know, finish your studies. And then here's the test date, the 13th through the 17th is when we do the test. Okay, so good. So that's what I have to say here. Stop sharing. Do you have any questions to this whole thing? I know I forgot to say at the beginning, if anything comes up, just interrupt me. Yes, Alicia, you want to say, or Isaias?
The only thing I was going to say is, from the looks of it, I think the brain seems like it's going to be the tough one, right? Because I do know that the brain is a very, very complicated part to study-wise, and I do see that you have given us 2 parts to it. So,
yeah, you know, it's definitely a bigger organ, and it's harder to understand than the heart like that. I think absolutely, it's extremely hard to understand if I'm really honest about it. And so what I try to do is I try to make sense of most structures that I want you to learn. So there's a structure and then there's a function with it. And then we try to understand what some of the functionalities are in the brain. Like, you know, you need to be You need to be able to smell. You need to be able to see. You need to be able to hear. You need to be able to balance. You have all these kind of things that are integration things. But then you also need to be able to feel. And where is that happening? What's going on with that department? Like the more unconscious side of our mental state and being and all of that. And then what about the the things like heart rate and breathing rate and stuff like that? That's unconscious, that we don't even have to think about it. Thank God. We wouldn't be able to survive if we would have to. And so how all of that integrates is extremely complicated. And so what we're trying to do in the brain is I try to make sense of a few things, like for example, try to make sense of how does the motor system work, like how does the connections to the muscles work, and then how do they get influenced, those connections. And so hopefully through making a story out of a few of the things by understanding their function and how the brain actually thinks in its thing, like what I said before with that nerves, how they fire together, and then when they get stronger they wire together and their connections get bigger and bigger, and that's sort of an interesting dynamic kind of table. And so my hope is that by approaching it from that angle, you start building the story, and it's also not just pure data, but it's useful data that you can apply in your regular life more. So that's kind of the other side of how I think, if you look at it from that perspective, it's it's not as big of a task to tackle.
Okay. No, yeah, that makes sense. I just noticed that it has two parts. So I'm like, oh wow, this is really gonna be the real deal. I mean, it's 65 questions. It's probably the most questions of all the tests that we've had so far.
Yeah, well, and you want to, one of the things is I think the brain, from the terms perspective, we just need to repeat and do that and go down the list and color and do things with it. And in the classroom, we can dissect the brain, and so that helps a little bit more to identify some of those structures. But then the other thing, of course, is the functioning. How does it actually work? And so that's the other thing that I want to make sure you get a basic grasp of that, and it will work out.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's to me it's one of the coolest organs, because it's
it's really cool.
The brain's got to figure out its own self. It's like, how the heck is that going to work?
I believe that, man.
Good. All right. Well, so is that anything more or less clear of what we're doing this week, or any questions on that? And if not, we can, we don't have to go longer than that. We can go and enjoy hopefully it's going to be raining a little bit more, and then, go on our merry way.
Professor, I don't know if you have a little bit of time after class.
Yeah, I can stick around.
Okay.
No problem. All right. Well, if nothing else comes up, either, stick around, or I wish you a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I had a question about the sodium intake. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind and trying to catch up.
That's all right. That's Allison, right?
Yeah, I've got a lot going on in my life.
That's
right
okay.
now.
Don't worry.
I am just wondering, and I have to look at the video from last week. So did you explain a bit about it last week?
The sodium?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. But what I, briefly, I want to talk a little bit about blood pressure, since that's one of the chronic pathologies that we're kind of struggling with in our society. Right. And one of the big components is sodium, is salt.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, instead of going to Safeway or CVS or whatever, we used to be able to just take a blood pressure and then feel bad about it. I think I wanted us to kind of get more conscious of like that culprit salt,
right.
of how much do we take. And so just monitor your salt intake for a week or 5 days, I think, whatever is on that list. And then, shoot me the daily values. But more important is that you actually just, do it for yourself and answer the questions. I think I have a couple of questions that go with it afterwards.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. I'll take a look at it and shoot you any emails if I have a question about it.
Yeah, or shoot or text, even easier.
Text is better. Okay, great. Yeah, I actually have
see
high
it
blood
faster.
pressure, so I take medicine for it. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, no, I know. I have a family history of that too, and it's and so that's why it's interesting to look a little bit at the lifestyle factors, because it's the stress is one, the salt is one, and then a few other ones, that the smoking, too much drinking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, I got it after I had a baby, so it's kind of all correlated with that. So
Yeah,
I think.
no, I mean, it's one of those things where our system, and it's good that medically we're actually having interventions. It's very good.
Right. Okay.
So just that's why we're doing that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like these activities are really wonderful. So, all right, I'll just send a text if I'm confused. Thanks.
Super. Thanks.
See you next week. Bye.
I see you next week.